So, I mean, we said Tony Pollard shouldering the load in the backfield. Tony Pollard's going 19th overall, RB7. He jumped up the rankings. Everybody loves him. The guy had 1,000 yards last year at a 5.2 yards per carry average with 9 touchdowns. Passing game, he only had 371 yards and 9.5 yards per reception, however, when he did it. So obviously he didn't get a ton of receptions, but when he did get a reception, he did a lot of work with it, and he had 3 touchdowns. I don't foresee him being the bell cow running back that everybody, I think, is drafting him at RB7 for. I think if they're going to run him more than they did last year, they're going to reduce him in the passing game. And if they're going to keep him involved in the passing game, they're still going to throw somebody in there for change of pace, which I think is the more likely avenue, because obviously he has great hands. He's good out the backfield, but you can't run this guy 20 to 25 times a game. I don't see his touches being significantly greater, but that being said, I could see him finishing with 1,100 yards, 100 more yards, 200 more yards maybe in the running game, but I don't see his total overall production being very much different than finishing at RB8. And some people have him even higher than RB7.
Yeah, it's hard to make an argument for. I can make an argument for him at 7. It's hard for me to make him an argument to break the top 5. I get what everyone's excited about. He was 3rd in the league in breakaway runs. He was 4th in the league in breakaway run percentage. You talked about the yards per touch and the yards per carry. He was elite in that. His yards per reception for a running back was number 2 in the league. So I get all these stats, especially the advanced stats. But the simple thing is that he's never shouldered more than 50% of the workload. And I don't know, watching him last year, he was the change of pace back that was really productive there. I don't think he's going to be the every down back. I don't think he can be the every down back. And so with that, they're probably going to have a rotation. And Deuce Vaughn is a guy that's really interesting there, who a lot of people are comparing to Darren Sproles as kind of being the change of pace, as being the 3rd down back. He gets lost. I mean, what does help Pollard and Deuce Vaughn is that Zach Martin re-signed. And I think without Zach Martin re-signing with this team, that offensive line was going to take a huge hit, especially in the run game. But we saw the last couple of years with Zeke, and Zeke's production has gotten down every year. And I don't know if that's Zeke's aging or the offensive line aging or the offense changing. But if we expect Pollard to take the next step, how much more do we think that he can, what are realistic numbers? Do we see his receiving totals go up? Do we see his yardage go up? Because he barely broke 1,000 yards. Yeah. And do we see him going up to 1,200 yards? I can't really see that happening unless he has just a crazy touchdown year. I mean, I think that's where he's going to finish, is in that 7 to 10 range. I still think he's worth, the tail end of the first round and the second round. I can make an argument for a lot of guys there that should be in that position. He's going in front of guys like Najee Harris, who's going to get the guaranteed touches. But it's hard for me to make an argument for him for Derrick Henry or Nick Chubb or Eckler or Christian McCaffrey or Saquon for him to jump any of those guys.
Yeah, and here's the thing about, yes, Cowboys have traditionally had a great offensive line. The thing that makes me nervous is, though, I'm looking at strength of schedule on these teams. You could go all over the site, and they kind of bounce around at strength of schedule because it's still based on last year's numbers. However, I think some of the teams that they're going to play have improved. I think the Giants' rushing defense has improved. I think the Jets, they have them as a mediocre rush defense. I think that is a solid rush defense and a difficult play. Yeah, they played the Cardinals. Yeah, they played the Chargers and the Seahawks, 3 teams that are terrible against the run. But outside of that, you play the Rams, who could be easy against the run because they did lose one of their biggest rush defenders, and I think the Giants acquired him. But you still face the Eagles, who have beefed up their defense. You face Carolina, who was a tough rush defense last year. You face Buffalo. You face Detroit. You face Washington twice, San Francisco, New England, Miami. You're not facing slouches in terms of defenses. So to me, I think the Giants and the Cowboys and Commanders, everybody's right in that same level playing field of their strength of schedule against the run this year. And I think the Cowboys, we got to give them credit. They're a great offensive line, but at some point, Tony Pollard can't be a between the tackles runner like some of these other guys. You're not looking at like Dameon Pierce. You're not looking at Marshawn Lynch of old days running through the tackles and breaking tackles big time. You got to get this guy ball open in space, and I think they will. And I agree with you. I think Deuce Vaughn is an interesting change of pace guy that's slippery, and I just don't see the avenue where Tony Pollard is a 270 rush, 50 reception guy.
Yeah, I mean, he was 19th amongst running backs in terms of evaded tackles. Like, so he's not going to be between the tackles kind of guy. He's more of an outside runner. He's more of a receiver out of the backfield. And, it might be crazy to say that a 5'5" guy is going to come in and shoulder a workload, but I think Deuce Vaughn is going to be you can draft him for free. No one's drafting him. And he might take a lot of this workload in the backfield because they're going to need someone else to take some of the carries away. I don't think Pollard's able to sustain 50% of the workload. And, if he does, it's going to be around the 55 to 60 mark, not in the 70 to 80 mark like people are projecting him to be.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the receivers because, I have Tony Pollard still in that second round. Like, he's a solid second round pick. I even have him kind of mid-second round because there's some guys that, obviously you got Jonathan Taylor and Josh Jacobs, two guys we're unsure about. If those guys both sign, I have those guys above him just because the workload they're going to get. But if you want to take him, you should be taking him still above people like Najee, still people above Travis Etienne. I think his opportunities are going to be better, and they're going to trust him. But